The United Nations appealing for international aid. Certainly, we know the situation is becoming more desperate all the time in the Philippines. We heard the head of the United Nations World Food Program tell us just in the last hour that there are 2.5 million people who need food, and they need it quickly. The government has imposed a curfew to help stop widespread looting. Of course, it's a criminal act, but others call that survival. And these are scenes of people doing whatever they can to help themselves. Survivors of Typhoon Haiyan stripping goods from a flattened supermarket. They need that aid, and they need it quickly. Let's talk more about this right now with the key person on this file, and that is the United Nations Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and their head of Emergency Relief Coordination. She's Valerie Amos, and she is in the Philippines and with me on the phone this morning. Ms. Amos, good to speak to you again. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
I know that you just arrived there on the ground in the disaster zone just hours ago. So let me get your personal experience so far. Where have you visited and what have you seen?
Well, I'm actually in Manila right now, which is the capital city. I hope to get down to Tacloban tomorrow. I had the opportunity today to speak to the president, to a number of officials, to some of my own team and some of the rest of the United Nations family about how we can best support the government's efforts and particularly do more to make sure that the supplies that are so desperately needed, that they get to the people who need them. It's been a logistical nightmare for people over the last few days.
What have been the greatest problems? The roads?
Well, yes. I mean, there was early warning about this. The Philippines were expecting a typhoon. Normally what they get are very, very high winds, but what they got this time as well, which nobody expected and which they haven't experienced before, was tsunami-like conditions, waves that were so high that they devastated communities, crushed homes, and basically took people in their wake. And the debris that was left as a result of that meant that even though we managed to get people to the airport in Tacloban on Saturday, the day after the typhoon, they weren't even able to get out of the airport on that day because of the debris. And the day after, when they were able to leave, it took them 6 hours to get into the town, just a few meters away. It just gives you a sense of what they faced over the last couple of days. Some of that debris has now been removed, so we can get more supplies in. But the result is that people are now desperate. They need water, they need food, some people are hurt, they need medical help. We need to support the government's efforts to get more of that in as quickly as possible.
Well, let's talk about that in just a second, but picking up on your last point, we have seen the scenes of people literally scavenging through the debris to try to find any scrap of food to eat. It is a disparate situation. Are you now there to sort of take personal charge of the oversight and the coordination of the relief needed?
Well, I'm here to make sure that all the blockages that we face, that we're able to unblock them, that the people who are doing the work here on the ground, that they don't have to worry about that. The Secretary General of the United Nations, the President of the Philippines. I mean, people are very clear that they will do all they can, use their influence to make sure that we get the supplies we need, but also that we get the aircraft that we need, that we get the people with the expertise on the ground that they need. And I want to reassure our staff that we are there to do that. But I also want to talk to people about what is it that we are not doing. I know in the first instance that we're not getting enough supplies in, but there are other things that people need that we may not have thought about. And that's why I hope to get to Tacloban myself tomorrow. All
of what you've outlined requires money, obviously. I know yesterday you released $25 million in UN funding from a special fund as an initial immediate response. But today you've also gone forward to make an ask of the international community. What are you seeking?
We asked for $301 million. We want to make sure that there's safe drinking water for people, that people have somewhere to rest and sleep, so they need shelter. We need to deal with people's injuries, but we also need to get medicines in there. We don't want any kind of disease to spread. We want people to get food. We want to make sure that people have personal hygiene items and that there's sanitation. When you get this degree of devastation, everything has been flattened in some areas. You are literally starting from scratch.
Canada has so far committed $5 million, is sending its DART team, Disaster Assistance Response Team, and is matching Canadians' individual donations. So that's been this country's response thus far. As you look for that $301 million, do you think Canada's pledged enough to this point, or will you be looking for more from this country?
I think that people are going to be extremely generous. We're seeing it already because people have been so affected by what they have seen and heard. When we launched this action plan today, a number of representatives of governments here in Manila stood up and made commitments on behalf of their governments, but also committed to help with things like aircraft. So we're now putting all of that together so we can coordinate it as effectively as possible, and so that we're not falling over each other, and making sure that as many people as possible get the help that they need. In these situations, there are always going to be gaps. I've been horrified by some of the scenes that I have seen and heard of people having to loot because they are so desperate. So the fact that we have better communication now, the fact that the road is open, we will use that to our maximum.